So we move on to the next part of the talk show today, which is Justin and I talking about for the next 15 minutes or so about this recent book book that I had written, which was released recently. Justin,
Yep.
um,
Hello.
hey, how are you doing?
Welcome, everyone. On screen for the first time in our show, usually
Yes.
behind the scenes, but I'm happy to take a moment to thank everyone for coming and to share some happiness in introducing our next guest and someone that I've known for 17 years now. Started as a professor and has continued as a friend and mentor and boss and coworker and colleague and someone that I've always looked up to, and I hope to continue to work with along the many years to come. But we're here to not just throw accolades at him, but to speak about his book. Uh,
Thank
a
you,
great,
Justin.
yeah,
For a
a
minute, I
great.
was like, who's he talking about? Yeah. No, thank you. Hey, just very quickly, I do want to add this that I was telling a friend recently that in 2003, I was at my studio in Soho. We had started on LaGuardia Place between Houston and Bleecker in 2002. A year later, in my first or second class that I taught at Rensselaer Polytechnic at the Lighting Research Center, Justin was one of the star students. Yeah, and he came and worked with us that summer. Uh, I still remember the scene vividly because this is 17 years ago. That he would have a big bottle of ginger ale. He'll have his jelly beans on the other side, right? The right
Yeah.
and headphones, and work with a focus, and understand what was required faster than I've ever seen before. It was just like this, but it was ginger ale, jelly beans, headphones, and doing the work, right? Fast forward almost 4 years, he joined us full time in 2007, November 15th. We were in the middle of a major master plan deadline in the Middle East. It was a major deadline. And I remember the first 3 weeks, he didn't take, I don't think we had one weekend off. Yeah. We just worked straight for 3 weeks. We were a young firm. We needed to, I guess, in some ways, prove a point, and in some ways, stick to our culture of getting it done and meeting the deadline. So that's 2007. Then multiple moves from him being from designer to senior designer to associate to senior associate to now an associate director based here in New York. It's been a complete pleasure to work with you, Dr. Mensch, as I call him, and love to talk to you about the book, which you and Anuri and other members of the AWA team also did so much work on. It's such a labor of love, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm guessing the audience is going, okay, guys, enough of the love fest. Talk about the book now. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean it's been a great experience with the book. It's it's an experience of making sure everything was there that we wanted to share with the world through your research and projects and understandings of your thought leadership and in a way that was as always beautifully done visually and thought provoking. And I know I want to take this time to have you speak about where the inspiration of that came from. And we have 18 essays in the book, and just tell a little bit about the book, and then how people can get it if they don't have it already.
Sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Thank you. So do you want to open up the slides?
we'll share the screen.
All right. So the the book was released in the middle of the pandemic um, in June. It was delayed almost 6 months because of some production issues in Hong Kong, but we finally got the book out right in the middle of the pandemic. So um, but that's life, right? You roll with the punches, and we're going to pick this up like with our friend Durea, that exactly a year later. So exactly a year later, we hope to come to several cities to talk about this topic. Now, what is this topic, contextualizing light? Like, why did we call the book that? Because that's really our operating mantra. That we are big believers in not looking at the world as flat, that everything has to be McDonaldized, everything has to be the same, because there are so many subtle nuances to every context, to every culture, to every geographical location, that if we don't capture that and factor that into a lighting response, your your lighting response becomes diluted, in that it is could be anywhere. That starting to travel to different locations for projects or for competitions or for meetings, what I noticed was that everybody was aspiring. There was a whole aspirational index, which is that we all aspire to be a city that we are not like them, but we want to be like them. For example, people in say parts of Asia, like when I would be in Singapore, they're like, well, yeah, we love New York. We want, we like that New York vibe. We like that New York look, right? And they try to do the development work. I'm not saying Singapore alone, I'm saying in general, right? If you're in parts of Africa, you want to be more like Dubai. If you're in parts of this old Soviet Union, Russia, you want to be more like Almaty and other places where, there's an oil boom. So there's always this thing about like looking up to kind of going to a place which is not necessarily us, but it represents an aspirational index, which is in Sanskrit, Hindi, it's called Maya Jal, right? That it kind of is the one that creates this illusion of what you would want to be. But what we lose along the way is this question: is that what does it really need to be? Not what your aspirations are telling you alone, but what does that space really need to be in response to its context? So instead of doing the Michael Friedman world is flat, everything must look the same, you must have a McDonald's in every city, we are of the belief that I have nothing against McDonald's, well, besides being vegetarian and other things, but in terms of as a corporation, um, we are of the firm belief that there is so much richness that the world can offer if we are able to give them, you know, tools of introspection and therefore pushing it forward. So if the builders and the developers see that there is local responses, which are coming up, right? To encourage them and to build accordingly. Now we see a lot of that happening, or a lot of the changes that have started to happen now world over in contextualizing responses, right? And the choice of materials was, was basically addressed in the 80s and 90s. Then the choice of the facade, glass finish, etc., in the 2000s and till about 10 years ago. And now we are all wondering that, yes, the world is one place, we are all connected, but does that mean that we all have to look the same in terms of our cities, in terms of our architecture? So, along with that, we had this big focus on health and wellness. So, because the idea is that this has to be an evocative human experience, not just an experience for architecture, but for human beings who are in that space. So, we started putting this book together, and we had a publisher back in like 2014, 13, 14, that wanted to publish a book, make a big coffee table book. And we were very tempted because it was quite a compelling argument that they were making for it in terms of uh, how it was going to be distributed, etc. But we pulled the plug on it in 2015, saying we're not doing a coffee table book. We're not going to waste paper and cut trees to put something out there which is just a symbol of your vanity. Like, look at how pretty I am, right? But that's where the question was, why write this book? The book was written so that we could engender a dialogue challenging the parameters that exist in a zeitgeist, right? Challenging the whole conversation about why the world has to be flat. You know, there's that one famous saying that the only thing that we are most scared of besides death is losing the convenience, losing our conveniences, right? So I'm not saying that we are touching the convenience dialogue here. What I'm saying is that within the multiple flavors that exist all over the world, you know, we can have an approach of embracing them as against saying, nah, let's make it look like New York, you know. And so an examination took place over, many of the essays that I've written, so we have about 18 essays in the book, including topics like when did darkness become bad, you know, and how do you contextualize light with culture, you know. So you will see all these essays in the book, which are then expanded with examples from our projects, completed projects. So everything that's in the book is our completed work. So it's not it's basically a practitioner, with a beautiful team of professionals working, in the AWA team who have actually completed these projects, and then from that we got the anecdotes and the stories and the lessons and what to do next time and how to fix things and how to make it better. So we've currently worked in 20, we've finished projects in 23 countries, and lots of in the book, we are featuring 80 lighting design projects out of about 900 or so that we have completed. And the book is available on Amazon. But just very quickly on how we organized it, which was another um, uh, point of um, departure from conventional books that you would see. Conventional books, with no disservice to the authors who have written it, are connected more with how do you make technology do more things for you. For example, how do you make an LED smaller? How do you make the driver more efficient? How do you make fixtures more compact and get better distributions and so on and so forth, right? That's that's the current zeitgeist of the last 30 years. There's only a few books that I can name which have actually questioned our zeitgeist, and said, are we doing the right thing? you know we don't want to wake up 10, 15, 20 years later and go, we just did the same stuff that didn't really further humanity. So anyway, so that was why we worked really hard on this book. And if we go to, these are some of the other essays, and if we go to the next one, yes, so this was the point of departure, right? That we said that all of the work that we do is connected to a human requirement which emanates from your body energy centers, which are called chakras. In TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine, they're called dantians or meridians, etc. But in the system that we were using is the system of chakras, where we take this bold move and say that we are going to organize our work based on um, what is the prime emotion connected to the chakra, and then kind of give it a sector. So if you start with the Muladhara chakra, what we're saying is that's really about survival and work, meaning you have to pay the bills, you got to have a house, all of that, right? And then we that's where our commercial work, that is our offices and work centers and um, you know uh, master plans for cities comes in. When we get to the residential side, that's about being, the sensitivity of creating a home. When we go to hospitality, we're talking about relaxation. Relax, right? I once presented this and somebody said, well, I don't go to a hotel to relax, I go to a hotel to work. I'm like, I feel sorry for you, because we all do work, but at the end of it, you are there to sit by the pool or go to the beach or go and eat a nice meal, etc. So there is a big component for us of relaxation and hospitality. If I come to a hotel and it looks like it's your workspace, then the lighting has probably misfired. Yeah, you know, the healthcare aspect of it is the heart. It's the heart chakra, the anahat chakra, which is connected to love and empathy. That if you want to heal people, you need to have love and empathy, right? Um, then when we get to retail, we are talking about making a point, your voice, right? That's your Vishuddha. And then we go to the, as you go up in your chakras, you connect to different sectors, right? So we were, you know, we were told by our publisher, boy, that's you sure you want to do this? And in consultations with the team, I was like, yeah, we are definitely taking a stance and a point of view, and it doesn't have to be reduced in its complexity just so that it fits in, you know so we've always been considered iconoclasts in that we question things. Some people have called us mavericks, and that's okay. We take it as a compliment. But at least we feel that we are making compelling additions to the architecture, to our built environment, to our zeitgeist, that down the road, hopefully some people would agree that we made a difference. So that's been a motivation for us, that did we actually make a difference. Yeah. So I think we are straight out of time here. So if you have any questions, please let us know, and I'm here to answer them. The book is available on Amazon. Just a quick plug. Definitely check it out. Give us your feedback. We would love to hear more from you on your thoughts on it, um, and how we can make our next book, which will come out in 2 years, better. And more on that and another talk.